Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. From the peaceful farmlands of Amish country to the urban streets of Philadelphia, from the rolling hills of coal mining towns to the bustling neighborhoods of Pittsburgh, a state of contrasts, a state of history, and a state where some of America's most shocking murders have taken place. Cases that horrified communities, that made national headlines, that changed lives forever. 5 verified cases from across Pennsylvania, from serial killers to hate crime sprees, from torture houses to farm massacres. This is the dark side of the Keystone State. Before we explore these disturbing cases, if you're interested in true crime, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We cover verified cases from around the world with respect for victims and their families. Comment which Pennsylvania case shocked you most. Let's begin. Gary Heidnik, Philadelphia, 1986 to 1987. The House of Horrors. Gary Heidnik was born November 22, 1943 in Ohio. His childhood was troubled. His parents divorced when he was young. His father was abusive. Gary attempted suicide at age 13. He dropped out of school in 9th grade. He joined the Army but was discharged after 14 months with a diagnosis of schizoid personality disorder. Back in civilian life, Gary became obsessed with religion. He started his own church, the United Church of the Ministers of God. He was the only minister. He had a small congregation. But the church was really just a scheme. Gary invested the church's money in the stock market. By the 1980s, he had accumulated over $500,000, a fortune. But Gary was deeply disturbed. He had been in and out of mental hospitals. He had attempted suicide multiple times. He had a history of kidnapping. In 1978, he kidnapped a mentally disabled woman. He held her in a storage unit, raped her. He was caught. He served 4 years in prison. He was released in 1983, and he began planning something far worse. Gary lived at 1728 North Marshall Street in Philadelphia, a rundown row house in a rough neighborhood. Inside, Gary was building a prison. In November 1986, Gary picked up Josefina Rivera. She was a sex worker, 25 years old. He offered her money. She got in his car. He drove her to his house. Once inside, he attacked her. He chained her by the neck in his basement. He told her she would never leave. She was his prisoner, his slave. Over the next few weeks, Gary kidnapped more women. Sandra Lindsay, 19 years old. Lisa Thomas, 19. Deborah Dudley, 23. Jacqueline Askins, 18. Agnes Adams, 24. All sex workers, all vulnerable, all missing. Nobody reported them. Nobody looked for them. Gary kept all 6 women chained in his basement. He dug a pit in the concrete floor, 4 feet deep. He put the women in the pit. He covered it with plywood weighted down with bags of dirt. The women were trapped, cold, dark, filthy. No bathroom, no light, barely any food. Gary would take them out one at a time. He would rape them, beat them, torture them. He had a plan. He wanted to create a baby farm. He wanted to impregnate all the women, have them birth his children, raise an army of kids. It was insane. Delusional, but Gary was serious. He tried to inseminate the women. He raped them repeatedly. When Sandra Lindsay didn't get pregnant, Gary became angry. He punished her. He hung her by her wrists from a ceiling beam for days. She died, her body hanging there. The other women could see her, smell her. They were terrified. Gary took Sandra's body down. He dismembered it. He put parts in his freezer. He cooked parts of her flesh and fed it to the other women. He told them it was dog food. But Josefina knew. She could tell. It was human. Gary's torture escalated. When Deborah Dudley tried to escape, Gary punished all the women. He forced them into the pit. He filled it with water. Then he took exposed electrical wires and touched them to the water, electrocuting them. Deborah died. The shock killed her. Gary took her body and dumped it in New Jersey. The other 4 women remained, terrified, starving, tortured. Josefina knew she had to escape. She had been there the longest. She had seen the most. She knew Gary would eventually kill them all. She began to manipulate Gary. She told him she loved him. She acted submissive, compliant. She said she would help him get more women. Gary believed her. He trusted her. On March 24, 1987, Gary took Josefina out of the house. He let her go outside. For the first time in 4 months, he told her to bring back more women. Josefina walked away. She saw a payphone. She called police. She told them everything. Police rushed to 1728 North Marshall Street. They knocked on the door. Gary answered. Police could smell the house. Rotting flesh, human waste, death. They arrested Gary immediately. They searched the basement. They found the pit. 3 women chained inside. Lisa Thomas, Jacqueline Askins, Agnes Adams, barely alive, malnourished, traumatized. They found Sandra Lindsay's remains in the freezer. Parts of her, cooked, eaten. The house was a horror show. Police had never seen anything like it. Gary Heidnik was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, rape, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, aggravated assault. His trial began in June 1988. The testimony was horrific. The 3 surviving women described the torture, the pit, the electrocution, the cannibalism. Josefina described how she survived, how she manipulated Gary, how she escaped. The jury was horrified. Gary's defense argued insanity. They said Gary was schizophrenic, that he didn't know right from wrong, but the jury didn't buy it. Gary knew what he was doing. He planned it. He hid it. He was evil, not insane. On July 3, 1988, Gary Heidnik was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to death. He spent 11 years on death row. He never showed remorse. He never apologized. On July 6, 1999, Gary Heidnik was executed by lethal injection. He was 55 years old. His last meal was black coffee and 2 slices of cheese pizza. His last words, he claimed he was innocent, but he wasn't. Gary Heidnik was one of the most depraved killers in Pennsylvania history. The Philadelphia House of Horrors. 2 women dead, 4 women tortured for months, a basement dungeon, cannibalism, sexual slavery. The case inspired the character Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Thomas Harris, the author, based parts of the character on Gary Heidnik, the pit, the captive women, the depravity. It was too horrific to be fiction, but it was real. It happened in Philadelphia. In a row house on North Marshall Street, the house has since been torn down, but the memory remains. Gary Heidnik's House of Horrors, a nightmare in the city of brotherly love. Cosmo DiNardo, Bucks County, July 2017, the Bucks County Massacre. Cosmo DiNardo was born in 1996. He grew up in Bensalem, a suburb north of Philadelphia. His family owned a farm in Soulbury Township, Bucks County, 90 acres, rural, isolated. Cosmo had a troubled history, mental health issues, behavioral problems. By his early 20s, he had multiple arrests, possession of firearms, drugs, but nothing violent, until July 2017. On July 5, 2017, 19-year-old Jimmy Tarpatrick went missing. He was last seen in Bensalem. His family reported him missing. They searched. They posted on social media. No trace. 2 days later, on July 7th, 3 more young men went missing. Dean Finocchiaro, 19. Tom Mayo, 21. Mark Sturgis, 22. They were friends. They all disappeared the same day. All last seen in Bucks County. Their families were frantic. 4 young men missing in 2 days in the same area. Police knew something was wrong. They began investigating. They found connections. All 4 men had been in contact with Cosmo DiNardo. They had gone to meet him, to buy marijuana. That was the last anyone heard from them. Police went to the DiNardo farm. They questioned Cosmo. He denied knowing anything. He said he never saw them, but police didn't believe him. They searched the farm. 90 acres of land, fields, woods, a large property. They found Jimmy Patrick's car, buried in a metal outbuilding, hidden. Why would Jimmy's car be on the DiNardo farm if Cosmo claimed he never saw him? Cosmo was arrested. He was charged with stealing Jimmy's car. He posted bail. He was released. But police kept searching the farm. They brought in cadaver dogs, excavation equipment. They dug, and they found bodies. On July 12, 2017, police found human remains on the DiNardo farm. They were buried in a deep grave, 12.5 feet deep. Police kept digging. They found more remains, burned, dismembered, multiple bodies. DNA testing confirmed the victims: Jimmy Patrick, Dean Finocchiaro, Tom Mayo, Mark Sturgis. All 4 missing young men, dead, buried on Cosmo DiNardo's family farm. Cosmo was arrested again, this time for murder. His cousin, Sean Kratz, was also arrested. Both were charged with 4 counts of criminal homicide. During interrogation, Cosmo confessed. He made a deal. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, he would tell police everything, and he did. According to Cosmo's confession, he lured the 4 men to the farm under the pretense of selling them marijuana. On July 5th, Jimmy Patrick came to the farm. Cosmo shot him in the back. He killed him. He buried his body in a remote part of the farm. 2 days later, on July 7th, the other 3 came to the farm. Dean Finocchiaro arrived first. Cosmo shot him, killed him. Tom Mio and Mark Sturgis arrived together. Cosmo and his cousin Sean Kratz shot them both. 3 murders in one day. Why? According to Cosmo, it started as robberies. He wanted to steal from them, take their money and drugs, but it escalated. He shot Jimmy during a robbery. Then he decided to keep killing. He lured the others. He shot them. He buried them. He tried to burn the bodies to destroy evidence. He dug a massive grave, 12.5 feet deep. He called it a tomb. He put all 3 bodies from July 7th in it. He poured gasoline on them. He lit them on fire. Then he buried them. He used heavy machinery to cover the grave. He thought he would never be caught, but he was wrong. Cosmo DiNardo pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. He will die in prison. Sean Kratz was also convicted. He was sentenced to life in prison for his role in the murders. The families of the victims were devastated. 4 young men, 19, 21, 22 years old, killed over marijuana deals. Killed by someone they thought was a friend. Their bodies burned and buried on a farm. The Bucks County Massacre shocked the Philadelphia area. A quiet, rural community, farmland, and 4 brutal murders. The DiNardo farm has been sold. The new owners demolished the barn where the murders took place. They wanted to erase the memory, but the families will never forget. Jimmy Patrick, Dean Finocchiaro, Tom Mayo, Mark Sturgis. 4 lives stolen. 4 families destroyed. All because Cosmo DiNardo decided to kill. Jerry Sandusky, Penn State, State College, Pennsylvania, 2011. One of the biggest scandals in sports history. Jerry Sandusky was born January 26, 1944 in Washington, Pennsylvania. He grew up loving football. He played in high school. He played at Penn State University. After graduation, he became a coach. In 1969, he joined the Penn State football coaching staff as an assistant. He worked under head coach Joe Paterno. Paterno was a legend. Penn State football was everything in State College, and Jerry Sandusky was part of it for 32 years. He coached linebackers. He coordinated the defense. He helped Penn State win national championships. He was beloved, respected. In 1977, Jerry founded the Second Mile, a charity for at-risk children. The mission was to help disadvantaged kids, give them mentors, opportunities, sports programs. It was praised. Jerry was seen as a hero, a man who dedicated his life to helping kids. But Jerry Sandusky was hiding something horrific. He was a child predator. For decades, Jerry used the Second Mile to access vulnerable boys. He groomed them, gained their trust. Then he sexually abused them, in locker rooms, in his home, on Penn State campus, in hotel rooms during bowl games, everywhere. The abuse went on for years, and people knew, or suspected, but they did nothing. In 1998, a mother reported to Penn State police that Jerry had showered with her 11-year-old son, that he had touched him inappropriately. Penn State investigated. They interviewed Jerry. He admitted to showering with boys. He said it was innocent. The investigation went nowhere. No charges were filed. Jerry continued coaching, continued running the Second Mile, continued abusing children. In 2001, a graduate assistant named Mike McQueary witnessed Jerry raping a 10-year-old boy in a Penn State locker room shower. McQueary was horrified. He reported it to head coach Joe Paterno. Paterno reported it to Penn State administrators, but nobody called police. Nobody stopped Jerry. Penn State officials told Jerry not to bring kids to campus anymore, but they didn't fire him. They didn't report him to authorities. They protected the football program. They protected Penn State's reputation. And Jerry kept abusing children. In 2009, a high school counselor reported Jerry to authorities. A boy had disclosed abuse. Pennsylvania State Police began investigating. They found more victims, lots of them. Boys who had been abused by Jerry Sandusky over decades. The investigation led to a grand jury. In November 2011, Jerry Sandusky was arrested. He was charged with 52 counts of sexual abuse involving 10 boys over 15 years. The scandal exploded. Penn State, Joe Paterno. The second mile. All implicated. The university fired Joe Paterno, the legendary coach who won more games than anyone in college football history, fired for not doing more to stop Jerry Sandusky. Paterno died 2 months later from lung cancer, his legacy forever tainted. Jerry Sandusky's trial began in June 2012. The testimony was devastating. 8 victims testified. They described years of abuse, how Jerry groomed them, gave them gifts, took them to games, then abused them in showers, in hotel rooms, in his basement. Some were abused for years, starting when they were 10, 11, 12 years old. Jerry's defense argued the boys were lying, that they wanted money, that they made it all up, but the jury didn't believe it. On June 22, 2012, Jerry Sandusky was found guilty on 45 of 48 counts. He was convicted of sexually abusing 10 boys over 15 years. On October 9, 2012, Jerry Sandusky was sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison, effectively a life sentence. He was 68 years old. He's been denied appeals multiple times. He's currently in a Pennsylvania state prison. He will die there. The Penn State Scandal went beyond Jerry. Penn State was fined $60 million by the NCAA. The football program was given a 4-year postseason ban. Scholarships were reduced. Wins were vacated. Penn State President Graham Spanier was convicted of child endangerment for failing to report Jerry's abuse. 2 other administrators were also convicted. Joe Paterno's statue was removed from outside the football stadium. His legacy is debated to this day. Should he have done more? Could he have stopped Jerry? The debate continues. But one thing is certain. Jerry Sandusky abused children for decades, and Penn State protected him. They chose football over children, and for that, the university will forever be associated with one of the worst child abuse scandals in American history. Richard Baumhammers, Pittsburgh suburbs, April 28, 2000, a hate crime rampage that shocked Pennsylvania. Richard Baumhammers was born May 17, 1965. He grew up in Latvia. His parents were Latvian immigrants who moved to the United States when Richard was young. They settled in the Pittsburgh area, Mint, Lebanon, an affluent suburb. Richard seemed to have advantages: education, opportunity, but he was troubled. Richard went to college, then law school. He became an immigration lawyer. Ironic, given what would come later. He had his own practice. He helped immigrants navigate the legal system. But Richard was mentally unstable. He had been diagnosed with mental illness. He was paranoid, delusional. He believed in white supremacy. He hated immigrants, non-white people, anyone who wasn't like him. The hatred grew, festered. In the late 1990s, Richard's behavior became more erratic. He believed people were following him, watching him. He thought his neighbors were plotting against him. He became obsessed with conspiracy theories, white genocide, replacement theory. He believed America was being invaded by immigrants, by minorities, and he decided to do something about it. On the morning of April 28, 2000, Richard Baumhammers began his rampage. It started at his home. His next-door neighbor was Anita Gordon, a 63-year-old Jewish woman. She lived alone. She was kind, friendly. Richard hated her because she was Jewish. At approximately 7:30 a.m., Richard went to Anita's house. He knocked on her door. When she answered, he shot her, multiple times. She died instantly. Richard left her body in her home. He went back to his house. He set it on fire to destroy evidence. Then he got in his car and he went hunting. Richard drove to the India grocer's store in Scott Township, a small market that served the local Indian community. The manager was Anil Thakur, 31 years old, from India. He was working behind the counter. Richard walked in. He pulled out a gun. He shot Anil in the head, killed him. Then Richard spray-painted a swastika on the wall and the words, "Skinheads rule." He left. He drove to a Chinese restaurant in Robinson Township, the China Buffet. It was mid-morning. The restaurant was preparing for lunch. Jia's son, 34 years old, was working. She was Korean, not Chinese, but Richard didn't care. To him, all Asians were the same. Richard walked in. He shot Jia. She died. Richard left. He drove to a karate school in Carnegie, Young's Karate School, run by a Vietnamese family. Thao Pham, 27, and Sanderson Phan were there. Richard walked in. He opened fire. He shot Thao Pham, killed him. He shot Sanderson Phan. Phan survived, wounded but alive. Richard left. He drove to a synagogue. Beth El congregation in Scott Township. It was Friday morning. Preparations for Shabbat services. Richard fired shots into the building. Nobody was hit. The synagogue was damaged, but no one died. Richard left. He kept driving. Police were now aware of the shootings. They were searching for the gunman. Multiple reports, multiple locations. It was a coordinated attack, a rampage. Richard drove to a third restaurant, a Chinese restaurant in Moon Township. The owners were ethnic Chinese from Vietnam. Richard walked in. He shot Gary Lee, 22 years old, shot him in the head. Gary died. Richard had now killed 5 people, wounded 1, attacked a synagogue, all in less than 2 hours. All victims were minorities, immigrants, non-white. It was a hate crime spree, pure and simple. Police finally caught up with Richard. He was stopped on a road in Ambridge, about 20 miles from Pittsburgh. Police approached his car. Richard surrendered. He didn't resist. He was arrested. In his car, police found multiple guns, ammunition, hate literature, white supremacist materials. Richard had planned this. He had a list of targets, more minority-owned businesses, more synagogues, more victims. But police stopped him before he could continue. Richard Baumhammers was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, ethnic intimidation, arson. His trial began in 2001. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses, ballistics, his car, his writings. Richard's defense argued insanity. They said he was schizophrenic, that he was delusional, that he didn't know right from wrong. Psychiatrists testified. Some said he was insane. Others said he knew what he was doing. He planned the attacks. He chose his victims. He knew they were minorities. He wanted to kill them. The jury deliberated. On May 11, 2001, Richard Baumhammers was found guilty on all counts. The jury recommended the death penalty. The judge agreed. Richard was sentenced to death, but Richard spent years on death row, filing appeals, fighting the sentence. In 2023, Pennsylvania's governor announced a moratorium on executions. Richard's death sentence was effectively commuted to life in prison. He's currently incarcerated in Pennsylvania. He's 69 years old. He will never be released. The victims of Richard Baumhammers were innocent people. Anita Gordon, a Jewish neighbor who did nothing wrong. Anil Thakur, a store manager supporting his family. Thao Pham, a karate instructor teaching kids. Jie Sun, a restaurant worker. Gary Lee, a young man just starting his life. All killed because of their race, their ethnicity, their religion. The Pittsburgh area was horrified. This was a hate crime, domestic terrorism, an attack on the community, on diversity, on immigrants. Memorials were held, interfaith services, calls for unity. The families of the victims were devastated. They came to America for opportunity, for safety, and they were murdered by a man who hated them for existing. Richard Baumhammers' case highlighted the danger of white supremacy, of hate, of mental illness combined with access to guns. Richard was mentally ill, but he was also a white supremacist. He believed in his cause. He planned his attacks. He chose his victims carefully. Mental illness doesn't excuse murder. The hate crime rampage of April 28, 2000 remains one of the darkest days in Pittsburgh history. 5 people killed in 2 hours because of hate. Because a man believed they didn't belong. The victims' names are remembered. Anita Gordon, Anil Thakur, Thao Pham, Jie Sun, Gary Lee. They deserved to live. They deserved to feel safe. Instead, they were murdered by a man consumed by hate. The West Nickel Mine School Shooting, October 2, 2006. Amish Country, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The Amish are known for peace, nonviolence, simplicity. They live apart from modern society. No electricity, no cars. They farm, they worship, they raise their children in tight-knit communities. On October 2, 2006, that peace was shattered. Charles Carl Roberts IV was a 32-year-old milk truck driver. He lived in Lancaster County. He was married with 3 children. He seemed normal, friendly, quiet, but Charles was troubled. 20 years earlier, his infant daughter had died. Charles never recovered. He was depressed. He was angry at God. He harbored dark thoughts. On the morning of October 2nd, Charles told his wife he was thinking about molesting children again. He said he had molested young relatives 20 years ago. His wife didn't know what to say. She was shocked. Before she could respond, Charles left. He drove his truck to the West Nickel Mines Amish School, a one-room schoolhouse. 15 students inside, girls and boys, ages 6 to 13. The teacher, Emma Mae Zook, 20. At 10:25 a.m., Charles entered the school. He was carrying a 9mm handgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, a stun gun, bags of ammunition, chains, zip ties, lubricant, wood boards, nails. He was prepared. He ordered everyone to line up against the chalkboard. Emma Mae asked what he wanted. Charles told her to be quiet. He started to barricade the door. He nailed boards across it. He was locking them in. Emma Mae ran to the door. She tried to escape, to get help. Charles let her go. He let all the boys go. He let the adult women go. He kept only the girls. 10 girls, ages 6 to 13. He tied them up with zip ties. He forced them to lie face down in a line. The girls were terrified, crying, praying. Outside, Emma Mae had flagged down a man driving by. He called 911. Police were dispatched. At 10:35 a.m., police arrived at the school. They surrounded it. They tried to communicate with Charles. He called 911 himself. He told police he had hostages. He told them to leave or he would kill everyone. Police tried to negotiate. Charles hung up. Inside, Charles was pacing, agitated. The girls were praying. Some of the older girls spoke up. Marion Fisher, 13, and her sister Barbie, 11. They told Charles to shoot them first. They offered themselves to save the younger ones. Charles ignored them. At 11:07 a.m., police heard gunshots. Rapid fire. Charles was shooting the girls, execution style, in the back of the head. Police stormed the school. They broke down the door. They found Charles. He had shot himself in the head. He was dead. They found the girls, 10 of them, all shot. 5 were dead. Anna Mae Stoltzfus, 12. Marion Fisher, 13. Naomi Rose Ebersola, 7. Lena Miller, 8. Mary Liz Miller, 8. 5 more girls were wounded, some critically. Barbie Fisher survived, but was paralyzed. The Amish community was devastated. 5 little girls dead, 5 more wounded, killed in their own schoolhouse, by a man they didn't know, for no reason. Charles Roberts had no connection to the Amish. He wasn't Amish. He didn't know the girls. He chose them because they were vulnerable, innocent, easy targets. He wanted to hurt someone, to make them suffer, to get revenge on God for taking his daughter 20 years earlier, so he killed Amish schoolgirls. The response from the Amish community shocked the world. They forgave Charles Roberts. Hours after the shooting, Amish neighbors visited Charles's widow. They hugged her. They told her they forgave her husband. They invited her to the funerals. The Amish community set up a fund for Charles's family to help his widow and children. They showed compassion, grace, forgiveness. It was unprecedented. The world watched in amazement. How could they forgive a man who murdered their children? The Amish explained, forgiveness is central to their faith. Holding on to anger and hatred would only cause more pain. They chose to forgive, not to forget, but to forgive. The 5 girls who died were buried in Amish cemeteries. Their funerals were attended by thousands, Amish and non-Amish. The community mourned, but they also forgave. The West Nickel Mine School was torn down. The Amish didn't want it to become a place of morbid curiosity. They built a new school called New Hope School. In a different location, life went on, but the memory remains. October 2nd, 2006, the day a milk truck driver walked into an Amish schoolhouse and killed 5 little girls. The day the Amish showed the world what forgiveness looks like. 5 children dead, 5 wounded, a community traumatized, but also a community that chose grace over revenge. Pennsylvania's Amish country will never forget. These 5 cases show the dark side of Pennsylvania. From Philadelphia to Bucks County to State College to Pittsburgh, suburbs to Lancaster County, from urban row houses to rural farms to college campuses to suburban streets to one-room schoolhouses. Violence can strike anywhere. Gary Heidnik's House of Horrors in Philadelphia. 6 women kidnapped, chained in a basement, tortured, raped, 2 murdered, 1 cannibalized, a dungeon in the city. Cosmo DiNardo's farm massacre in Bucks County. 4 young men lured to a farm, shot, burned, buried in a 12-foot grave, all over marijuana. Jerry Sandusky's decades of abuse at Penn State. 10 boys sexually abused over 15 years. A beloved coach revealed as a monster. A university that protected him. Richard Baumhammer's hate crime rampage in Pittsburgh suburbs. 5 people murdered in 2 hours because of their race and religion. An immigration lawyer who became a domestic terrorist. The West Nickel Mines school shooting in Amish country. 5 little girls executed in their schoolhouse by a stranger. An Amish community that responded with forgiveness. These cases changed Pennsylvania. Gary Heidnik led to increased scrutiny of how police handle missing persons, especially sex workers who are often ignored. Cosmo DiNardo's case highlighted the dangers of drug deals and the vulnerability of young people. Jerry Sandusky destroyed Penn State's reputation and led to national conversations about mandatory reporting of child abuse. Richard Baumhammer's rampage exposed the danger of white supremacy and hate crimes. It led to stronger hate crime legislation in Pennsylvania. The West Nickel Mines shooting led to improved school security even in Amish communities. Pennsylvania is a diverse state. Cities and farms, universities and schoolhouses, modern and traditional. But these cases show that evil exists everywhere. In Philadelphia row houses where women are chained and tortured. On Bucks County farms where young men are buried in mass graves. On Penn State campus where a coach abused children for decades. In Pittsburgh suburbs where immigrants were hunted and killed. In Amish schoolhouses where innocence is destroyed. The victims in these cases were vulnerable. Sex workers who society often ignores. Young men looking to buy marijuana. Children who trusted a coach. Immigrants seeking the American dream. Amish schoolgirls who never harmed anyone. The killers were predators. Gary Heidnik, a mentally ill man who created a torture chamber. Cosmo DiNardo, a troubled young man who turned to murder. Jerry Sandusky, a respected coach who used his position to abuse. Richard Baumhammers, a white supremacist consumed by hate. Charles Roberts, a grieving man who blamed God and took it out on children. These cases also show different responses. Gary Heidnik was executed. Justice served. Cosmo DiNardo is in prison for life. Will never be free. Jerry Sandusky is in prison. Will die there. Richard Baumhammers was sentenced to death but will now likely die in prison. Charles Roberts killed himself. Never faced justice. But the Amish forgave him anyway. Chose grace over revenge. Pennsylvania has seen many murders, many tragedies, but these 5 cases stand out for their brutality, their impact, their lasting legacy. They're cases that will never be forgotten. If this video showed you the dark side of Pennsylvania, make sure to like and subscribe. We cover verified true crime cases from around the world, with respect for victims and their families. Comment which Pennsylvania case affected you most. Share this with anyone interested in true crime. These stories need to be told. The victims need to be remembered. Because Pennsylvania is more than just the Liberty Bell and Amish buggies. It's also a place where real crimes happened, where real people suffered, where real families were destroyed. Remember their names. The 6 women Gary Heidnik kidnapped, Sandra Lindsay and Deborah Dudley who died, the 4 who survived, Jimmy Patrick, Dean Finocchiaro, Tom Mio, Mark Sturgis, 4 friends killed on a farm, the 10 boys Jerry Sandusky abused, whose names are protected, but whose trauma is real, Anita Gordon, Anil Thacker, Thao Pham, Ji Sun, Gary Lee, 5 people killed because of hate, Anna Mae Stoltzfus, Marion Fisher, Naomi Rose Ebersole, Lena Miller, Mary Liz Miller, 5 Amish girls who died in a schoolhouse. These are the victims. These are the stories. This is Pennsylvania's dark history, and we remember